It's 2026, and that means the midterm elections are right around the corner. Now, all year long, we are going to be breaking down the top issues and the strategy going into Election Day. So here's where we stand at the moment. In January, new polling shows that the top concerns of voters right now is cost of living. You see that at 46%, democratic values and norms, immigration, crime, and then something else. And now let's look at the balance of power. So in the Senate, Republicans hold the majority. It's 53-47. Democrats would need to flip 4 Senate seats in order to take over that chamber. Now, over in the House, those numbers have narrowed, as you know. There are currently 218 Republicans, 213 Democrats, and that number will change within the next hour when Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is sworn in as Virginia's next governor.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Republican senators are starting to turn against Donald Trump. This isn't some distant possibility or wishful thinking from liberal folks. This is happening right now in real life in 2026. Members of his own party are publicly distancing themselves from the president, and some are saying things in private that would seriously surprise you.
This is the first die being cast in the 2026 midterms. Republicans say they're going to try and run on at least aspects of the one big beautiful bill. Democrats say they're going to be running against it. You have a look at what Republicans are up against as they seek to maintain their House majority next year. What does the landscape look like?
Yeah, let's take a look at this big picture midterm landscape here from the standpoint of Republicans trying to protect these majorities they used to pass this legislation. Good news, bad news for Republicans politically. The good news start on the Senate side for them, and it's this. They do have that 53-47 majority right now in the Senate. It means that Democrats would need to post next year on the Senate.
It's quite the sight to see Trump, the guy who is all about loyalty and demands absolute obedience, starting to lose his grip on the Republican Party. This is the same guy who wouldn't hesitate to unleash a 20-minute rant full of exploitives at a senator for daring to disagree with him. And now he's watching his support wane in real time. And let me tell you, he's not handling it well.
The people, my people are so smart. And you know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible. No, they say, Trump, we love you too, man. Trump's vote.
Just recently, Trump was singing a different tune, saying he wasn't worried about anything and claiming the party has never been more united. But behind closed doors, he's not so calm. He's been fuming at his allies, calling them disloyal and even threatening them with primary challenges. The language he's reportedly used about certain senators is so colorful that I can't mention it here. And it gets even wilder. It's not just the usual few who are stepping away from his side.
It's an extraordinarily dangerous moment. An authoritarian president proceeding to attack free speech, attack free press, weaponize the Department of Justice, and use it against those who disagree with him.
5 Republican senators cross party lines to vote with Democrats on a resolution that limits Trump's ability to use military force in Venezuela without getting Congress involved. On top of that,
before that vote even happened, President Trump sent a message to lawmakers saying any Republican in the House or the Senate that votes against tariffs will seriously suffer the consequences come election time.
We've seen 6 House Republicans break ranks to oppose Trump's tariffs on Canada. This came right after Trump had publicly warned that any Republican who voted against those tariffs would, in his words, seriously suffer the consequences come election time, primaries included. To add fuel to the fire, some Republican senators are openly criticizing Trump's decision to have the Justice Department look into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, calling it irrational and coercive. One Republican senator on the Banking Committee even mentioned he wouldn't move forward with any of Trump's nominees for the Federal Reserve until the whole Powell investigation is sorted out. As all this internal party drama unfolds, the Department of Homeland Security has just shut down because neither side could come to an agreement.
I was asking her about the approval ratings for the president on the 1-year mark since Election Day. And I think we should put on screen the newest data we have. This is from ABC out overnight. This ABC Washington Post poll showing President Trump at a 37% approval rating. The number, we've heard it for months now, 35, 37, 38%. We just can't underscore enough how historically low this is.
Trump's approval ratings are at historic lows. And recently, a Democrat flipped a Texas state Senate seat that he had won by 17 points, marking a 32-point swing that sent shockwaves all the way from Fort Worth to the halls of Congress. A senior Republican lawmaker described the relationship between the party and Trump right now with 3 words: fraying, but not broken. There are murmurs among Republican senators, with one even saying that some of Trump's decisions are simply irrational. It's noticeable how more and more of them are speaking out. Another senator mentioned how Trump struggles to take any disagreement without making it personal, viewing policy differences as personal attacks. This has made many senators feel cornered as the atmosphere has become quite hostile. Over the weekend, a long-Irving Republican official from a conservative San Diego suburb announced he's leaving the party entirely, declaring that the Republican Party is beyond redemption. This isn't the usual grumbling from within. It's more like the sound of cracks forming in the foundation. And honestly, everyone should be wondering if those cracks will hold or if the whole thing is about to crumble. Let me break down all that's gone down in just the last few weeks, because keeping up with the speed of this unraveling feels like a challenge. The media often treats each story as isolated, missing the larger picture of a president whose own party is gradually, quietly, and nervously backing away while he's up there on stage claiming everything is fantastic. This all started with the Venezuela War Powers vote. In early January, 5 Republican senators, Susan Collins, Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, Josh Hawley, and Todd Young, voted with the Democrats to advance a resolution that would block Trump from using military force in or against Venezuela without congressional approval. It's worth noting who was on that list. Hawley is seen as one of Trump's biggest supporters. Young usually votes reliably Republican, and Collins is the most vulnerable Republican senator heading into the midterms. These aren't just random backbenchers. These are prominent figures in the party saying they don't trust him. You know, when it comes to the decisions about sending American troops into combat, you'd think a president would handle that responsibly, but not Trump. He reacted just as you'd expect. He practically blew up publicly. He went after all 5 Republican senators who dared to oppose him, insisting they shouldn't be allowed anywhere near office again. And behind closed doors, it was described by one Republican senator as explosive. Reportedly, he even called Senator Collins and unleashed a 20-minute tirade filled with profanity just because she voted her conscience. 20 minutes of shouting at a sitting senator. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. Now, after Trump cranked up the pressure, Senators Hawley and Young ended up switching sides for the final vote, narrowly defeating the resolution. Technically, that meant Trump won that round, but the damage was already done. The world saw that some Republicans are willing to stand up to him, and the reason more don't is that they're scared of his retaliation. It's not because they actually agree with him. Then we had the crazy situation with Jerome Powell, which honestly felt like a scene straight out of a wild movie. Trump's Justice Department even opened an investigation into the chair of the Federal Reserve, who's supposed to work independently, free from political pressure. Powell had to respond with a video statement emphasizing that this situation would determine whether interest rates would be set based on solid evidence or manipulated by political intimidation. Republican Senator Thom Tillis went so far as to say this investigation calls the credibility of the Justice Department into question. Lisa Murkowski labeled it as merely an attempt at coercion and pushed for an investigation into the DOJ. Tillis didn't stop there. He declared he wouldn't support any Trump nominees for the Federal Reserve until the whole issue was settled. That's a serious threat, especially since he's on the banking committee responsible for those nominations. So now we've got Republican senators openly accusing the Republican president's Justice Department of trying to intimidate an independent institution, with one of them even holding Trump's nominees hostage over this mess. That kind of situation is definitely not normal, and it barely made a splash in the news. It's pretty wild how the news cycle has made us numb to all this chaos lately. Then things took a turn with a bit of a rebellion from 3 House Republicans, Don Bacon, Kevin Kiley, and Thomas Massie, who decided to vote against a procedural resolution meant to support Trump's tariffs. What's really surprising is that they made this choice despite the Republican leadership trying to pressure them for 7 hours before the vote. On top of that, during the actual vote to repeal tariffs on Canada, 6 House Republicans crossed party lines and teamed up with the Democrats to get it done right on cue. Trump wasn't happy and warned them they would face serious repercussions when election time rolls around. Yet despite that threat, they went ahead and voted against him anyway. Don Bacon, one of those rebels, spoke up and voiced something a lot of Republicans are probably thinking secretly. He mentioned that the party could use some independence and that it would actually be better for America. Meanwhile, things are changing fast for the Republican Party. Just look at the Texas special election on January 31st as an example. Democrat Taylor Remmett, a union leader and Air Force veteran, managed to flip a state Senate seat in Fort Worth, a district Trump won by 17 points back in 2024. Remmett actually won by 14 points, which is a 31-point swing toward the Democrats. Republicans poured a hefty $2.5 million into that race, and Trump went all out endorsing the Republican candidate. He even posted about her several times on Truth Social and rallied his supporters to vote, but they still lost by 14 points. In Texas, the Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called it a wake-up call for Republicans across the state, while the DNC chairman dubbed it a warning sign for Republicans nationwide. So, how did Trump react? He claimed he wasn't involved, called it a local race, and essentially tried to brush it off like it didn't happen. But let's look at the numbers. They tell a different story. Since Trump began his second term, Democrats have flipped 8 state legislative seats from Republican control across 5 states, while Republicans have flipped absolutely 0 Democratic seats. Yes, that's 0. The average swing in those 8 races is a significant 19 points. Now, here's where it gets even trickier for the Republicans. Trump's approval ratings are taking a nosedive. Pew Research shows he's now at 37% approval, down from 40% last fall. Only 27% of Americans back most or all of his policies, which is a drop from 35% when he first started his second term. So let's break this down. Approval ratings are taking a serious hit for Trump. Since March of 2025, his net approval has plummeted nearly 14 points. Among independent voters, the drop is an eye-watering 24 points. And when we look at Gen Z, it's even worse, with their approval hitting a record low of just 25%. His numbers on immigration have hit a second-term low. And the economic situation, it's underwater. Even among his own party, confidence in his ethics has slipped by 13 points over just 1 year. This is the backdrop when you hear about senators going against Trump, House members casting votes against his tariffs, and anonymous Republicans criticizing his decisions as frankly irrational. They're all looking at these troubling numbers and thinking about their own chances for re-election. And the math isn't in Trump's favor. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't a full-blown mutiny from the Republican Party just yet. Trump still holds significant sway over the party. He has a tight grip on the base and can easily threaten political careers with primary challenges and social media attacks that can end careers in the blink of an eye. The senators who strayed on the Venezuela vote mostly got pushed back into line by the end, and the House Republicans who voted against tariffs likely know their votes are more symbolic, since Trump has the power to veto and they don't have the numbers to override him. Those anonymous quotes calling him irrational exist for a reason. Folks are clearly hesitant to attach their names to that kind of criticism, but here's the kicker that should have the White House worried. Every single sign points in the same troubling direction. Approval ratings are still dropping, not stabilizing. Special election losses are getting worse, not better. More Republicans are willing to break ranks on votes rather than stay loyal. The issues prompting these splits, things like war powers, tariffs, the investigation involving the Federal Reserve and immigration enforcement, are becoming more significant and explosive by the week. And to top it off, we're facing a Department of Homeland Security shutdown right now, marking the 3rd government shutdown in just 6 months, all because Democrats are pushing for reforms on immigration enforcement. So back in January, there were these tragic incidents in Minneapolis where agents killed 2 American citizens, and now Trump and the Republicans aren't budging on the demands that arose from that. As of midnight last night, the whole department has shut down, leaving TSA agents, Coast Guard personnel, FEMA workers, and tens of thousands of others working without pay while Congress takes a 10-day vacation. At the heart of the issue are immigration enforcement tactics, particularly whether ICE agents should wear body cameras and stop wearing masks. This situation is driving a wedge right through the Republican Party. You see, those Republicans in swing districts are acutely aware that voters are increasingly uncomfortable with the aggressive immigration raids and the disturbing images coming out of Minneapolis. Yet they also know that breaking away from Trump on immigration could bring the wrath of his base during the primaries, leaving them stuck between a rock and a hard place. With the midterms creeping up, this tension is bound to escalate. There's this senior Republican lawmaker who perfectly described their predicament as fraying but not broken. The real question is how long they can stay not broken when every week seems to bring a new crisis or vote, forcing them to pick between Trump and their own political survival. They're also faced with polls indicating that the ground is shifting beneath their feet. With the midterms just 9 months away, history shows that when a president's approval ratings are this low, his party usually faces a heavy defeat. Back in 2018, Trump's party lost 40 House seats during the midterms, and his approval numbers were better then than they are now. Since Trump began his second term, Democrats have flipped 8 state legislative seats, while Republicans haven't flipped a single one. Just look at Texas, a 31-point swing in a district Trump previously won by 17 points should have every Republican strategist in a state of panic. What's really alarming for them is the demographic changes. The groups that made up Trump's coalition for 2024, young voters, Latino voters, and working-class voters without college degrees, are all drifting away from him at a concerning rate. CNN's Harry and Ten highlighted how Trump's support among non-white voters who are central to his political identity is crumbling when your own coalition starts to abandon you and your senators are quietly dubbing you irrational while members of your own house are voting against you even after you threaten them publicly. It's clear things are getting a bit wobbly. You know, the Republican Party right now feels more like it's held together with duct tape and a whole lot of fear, and let's face it, that stuff doesn't hold up forever. What I find interesting and honestly a bit ironic is that Trump's approach is only pushing people further away. When he goes off on a 20-minute rant filled with expletives at Susan Collins, it doesn't rally others to his side. It just makes them more anxious and resentful. They start thinking about their own survival instead of supporting him. Take his public threats against House members who don't back his tariffs. 6 of them still voted against him anyway. Next time, that number could easily grow to 10 or 15. And then there's that racist video he posted casting the Obamas in a ridiculous light, only to blow up at Tim Scott and Katie Britt for calling him out. He thinks he's securing loyalty, but in reality, he's just burning bridges with the very people he needs on his side. Looking back at Trump's first term gives you an idea of the pattern. It started with small cracks, anonymous whispers, then public disagreements on votes. By the time the midterms in 2018 rolled around, the Republican Party was washed away in a blue wave that lost them the House. This time around, though, everything seems to be happening at lightning speed, and the numbers are even scarier. Trump's approval ratings are down, the special election swings are more drastic, and the policy battles are more intense. It's not that these Republican senators and House members have suddenly found their backbone. They're just reading the same polls. We are realizing that sticking with Trump isn't a winning strategy in a midterm year when public sentiment is turning against him. Now, where does this lead us? Honestly, it's anyone's guess. Maybe Trump will manage to bully everyone back into line and the party will scrape by until November. Or perhaps the breaks will stay small and just be symbolic, never blossoming into a full-blown revolt. But then again, there's that nightmare scenario for Republican leaders. What if the floodgates open? What if a couple more shocking upsets happen and suddenly every Republican in a swing district is running away from Trump like their lives depend on it? Maybe the DHS shutdown drags out and voters start holding Republicans accountable. Maybe the tariff disputes escalate further, pushing more House members to cross the aisle. It's a wild ride ahead for sure. Right now, the Republican Party feels more divided than ever during Trump's second term. It's kind of wild to think that one of those anonymous senators might finally attach their name to a pretty irrational quote, causing the illusion of party unity to just come crashing down. Trump's method of handling the cracks in his support has been to just shout louder and hit harder. But history shows that this kind of approach is not effective when voters are already starting to drift away. The official stance is that the party is fraying but not broken, which sounds all well and good. But 9 months is a lengthy stretch. The midterms are right around the corner, and everything suggests that the party's fragmentation is only beginning. It'll be interesting to see if Republicans figure that out before November.